This is the Rat Alert. Civil defense information will be broadcast at 6:40.
West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello.
Y2K, how can we prepare?
Stop a few of their machines and radios. Throw them into darkness for a few hours.
We are fighting for our lives. My family must survive.
Over 5 years, 1,000 gallons of gas, air filtration, water filtration.
Coming at you from the frozen tundra that is East Central Alberta, Canada. Streaming live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Telegram, and Rumble. Welcome back to the workshop where we create community, find freedom, promote preparedness, and share success. I'm Toolman Tim, and today is March the 2nd. Oh, it's finally March 2023, and today is episode 265 of the Workshop Podcast. And how about I bring my cronies on with me? Let's see who we got in the background. Hey, Nate and Rachel, how are you?
Doing pretty good. How about you?
Not bad. I was thinking that we are coming up pretty close to just about a year from when we first started discussing this, eh?
Yep.
It was just, I think it was just before LFTN Spring Workshop we started talking about it.
Yeah, I think we started talking about it, and then I think we did the first one after it, if I remember.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we're coming up on, so this is book 9, and we missed 1 month. So we've been at it 10 months since we started, but since we first talked about it, yeah, we got to be getting damn close to a year.
Yeah.
Somehow it doesn't feel like that long.
No, it does not.
No.
That is what it is. You know, I don't know. It means we're having a good time. We got 7 people in the live stream already, so that's a good sign. So let's go around the horn, and let's start with Rachel. I haven't seen you in a while. What have you been up to, ma'am?
I've spent quite a while taking care of Mom for, while she was in and out of the hospital. So leave work, go there, come home, have to take care of all the animals, get some sleep really quick, wash, rinse, repeat,
Yeah. How are things better, or is that... Yeah,
she's better. They figured out what medication it was that was really destroying her body. So it's more or less worked out. She's on the mend.
Good.
Put it that way.
Good to hear. That's, yeah. I mean, we all, what's the words? What did Sarge say in this book? That none of us come out alive, but it sure is good to have as long as we possibly can. Hey.
Yeah.
Yep. And what is it I hear? Life is a sexually transmitted disease with 100% mortality rate.
Ain't that the truth?
That's about the extent of it.
Speaking of which, we're coming up on 3 years since the incident. Hey, I was just thinking,
right?
I was driving around today, and beautiful sight. The sign was up for the gun show. This weekend is Saturday and Sunday, the gun show. And it was 3 years ago that we had to cancel it because of the virus of unknown origins. So here we are.
Yeah, human malware virus.
Yeah, that's what it was. How you been, Brother Nate? What have you been up to?
I've been doing pretty good. We put some rabbits in the freezer last weekend.
Were they already butchered when you did that? Or?
Yes.
Okay,
we processed them out. We actually hosted a workshop here at the house.
Fill us in. How did it go?
We had 6 people show up.
Nice.
And it was basically a show up at the house, and if you have a question about rabbits or you're interested about raising rabbits, I'll run you through my entire system, and we'll process 6 rabbits in front of you so you can see how it's done. And it was really good. We had a lot of people over, a lot of questions. It was about 4 hours.
Were these locals, like people from your? Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was everybody. I think the farthest came was 2.5 hours south of us.
Friggin' right.
Oh.
So yeah, but people, I would say people outside of your 2 Chicks homestead kind of sphere, like this would be more, yeah.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, we posted it in our local Facebook group.
Okay.
And said, listen, we want to have a meetup at the house. We want to do a little tiny workshop. We're not going to charge you guys for it. Come by, hang out, meet up, and we'll teach you how to do rabbits.
Nice.
So
I love it. Oh,
I ended up processing 2 for everybody to see. And then one of the guys who doesn't have rabbits, but is very interested in getting rabbits, did the other 4 for me.
Nice.
Really?
So
Was that his first time dispatching wildlife?
Yep, first time ever processing
livestock.
anything.
Sorry, yep.
So he processed 4 of them for me, and I sent him home with 1. So.
I love it. That's all I can say, because we've talked about it. We've heard people preach about it, but getting involved in our local community and making these local connections is probably the hardest friggin' thing to do, but I think it's the most rewarding. So proud of you guys. That's awesome.
Exactly.
Did I see one of the kids taught one of the classes?
Yeah, she was doing a lot of the, my oldest was doing a lot of the walking around the hutch and explaining how things work and what we do with raising them. And that's her element. She loves talking about that stuff. So
that's awesome.
And I'll process it and show you how to do that. And then this weekend we have, we're going to do all of our sap. We have 32.5 gallons of sap to boil down.
You've been freezing it or just storing it outdoors?
No, it's stored in the garage right now. It's all in 5-gallon buckets.
Okay.
And then we have somebody who's also in our network coming down for the first time from about an hour north of us.
For the sap stuff?
Yeah, just come hang out for the day. So,
how you boiling it?
Over the bonfire.
Okay. Oh, nice. That'll give it a little bit of a smoky hint to it.
Yeah, it's going to be 2 days at least 30 hours boiling. So
I did I want to guess maybe I might have had 10 gallons of sap years ago, and I'm sure I told you I did it on my damn electric range.
Yeah.
not cost effective, and also made the house very, very humid. So
yep. It's a lot to it. It's at least 32.5 gallons, maybe a little bit more.
Yes, sir. Oh. Well, you should end up with close to a gallon or a little less of syrup.
Yeah, probably a tad over a gallon, I think.
Okay. What is it, 30-1 or something like that?
I think so. Yeah, it's pretty close.
Just going to take a minute and shout out. We got a lot of people here tonight. I see Arizona Renaissance Man, Trout's Adventure, Scott in Sierras. I wonder where he is. No, Byron Roberts, Chris Dixon, and I saw Mr. Chuck Peoples, who came on Sunday evening, and we had a very successful episode about putting together first aid kits. So if anybody hasn't heard
that, very good episode.
Yeah, I just sat back, man. I could have shut my feet off. Chuck just went. He was awesome.
Right?
Yeah.
I can't wait. Him and I are going to meet up in person. So we're, it's going to be good.
You guys are talking about boiling sap and doing all this kind of stuff like that. And I just brought in my strawberry plants that I put outside, yesterday when I got home from work. Put my strawberry plants outside so they could get some good sun, left them out overnight. It's going to drop down to 32 tonight, so I had to bring them in. Tomorrow when I get home, they'll be out for another day and a half. And
so I'm holding a finger up behind my hand. Can you guess which one it is? Yeah.
Right? Yeah, because Tim, you got probably another 6 months of winter up there.
Oh, fuck. Okay, officially my snow contracts end at the end of March. So we might get snow after that, but that's when I'm done. It's 5 months, right? So,
yeah.
But we had, what was it? A week ago, we had -30. So, and there's still in places a foot of snow on the ground. So it's not warming up yet.
Tomorrow it's Snowmageddon here in Chicago. So we're supposed to get anywhere from dusting to 18 inches.
That sounds about right.
We'll see where it goes. We're on the 1 to 3 inch range, and then by work is the 6 to 9 inch. So
what do they say? Only a politician and a weatherman can be wrong all the time and keep their job.
Still get paid.
Sorry, weather person.
Hey, if it makes you feel any better, 2 nights ago we had our snow, and it just melted that quick that I was,
It doesn't make me feel better, Rachel, just so you know.
It was 60 here yesterday.
Wow. Arizona Renaissance Man is an honorary Canadian. We had 1 inch of snow this morning in Arizona. Well, we'll send you down.
The only snow you guys see for 2 years.
That's crazy. And I've heard Utah Mike says they've had a great snow year. I've heard Cam and Colby say that on the pod on Casual Preppers too. They've had a lot this year. And we could absolutely use the moisture too. We've had 2 years of drought. So, well, we've had a great conversation. We should get you guys on sometime to just talk about the weather and homesteading, but
Right.
maybe we better, head into. So we have made it to book number 9, which was Conflicting Home, right?
Yep.
Was that the name? Yes. I wanted to call it Home Confliction, but that's the next one that goes backwards again, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think he just
The next one goes backwards?
the titles. So
Yeah, I thought it was only that one.
No, I think
it's
there's 2. The bugger. He does. I don't know why, but
yeah, the next one is
Homecoming.
Yes.
Yeah, so I get it, but it still could have been Coming Home, but that's just whatever, just me being me. So any opening thoughts, guys, on what you read? Did you enjoy it? Did you love it? Hate it? In between?
I liked it.
It was a good book. I mean, there's a lot that happened. I think my favorite line of the book was Sarge's comment to Morgan, "Your commie is showing a little."
That was really good. I have to say, actually, I just listened to that backing into the driveway today, that line. And what I appreciate about the book is that Chris takes some time, our Angry American takes time to flesh out these ideas, like, how do I want to put it? Like Morgan's worldview, because I think there's a bit of definitely some libertarian leanings there. I might not go as far as anarcho tendencies. Maybe they are, but I like how he doesn't just leave it in the theoretical. They kind of talk about how life gets messy. And, Morgan said, well, I'm not forcing some people to work so everybody can eat. It's just a simple fact of the matter that if you don't work, you don't eat. So,
exactly.
And I like that because there's this line through all the philosophy, and it goes to Sarge when he's torturing that guy. He has a really good line in there I'll talk about after as well, that once again, there's a really fine line between evil and good. And sometimes it's just all in the eye of the beholder, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So the book opens with, I think, the mushroom cloud just like the bomb went off at the tail end of the last one, right?
Yeah, it was that was the closing scene, and then it opened with that. Like the first 2 pages was all that.
And this was one of the first times that I can remember. Actually, he does it a couple times, but I think Morgan actually lies to his family, or lies to the kids at least, or disguises the truth, when he's like, we'll be okay. And I like the internal dialogue where Morgan's like, I don't really know if we'll be okay.
Yeah.
Hi, John Palmer.
Hey, how's it going?
Good to have you, brother.
I had to finish up with work. It's raining like hell down here, so
I'm glad it's not raining here. It'd be freezing if it were. So
yeah, luckily it was supposed to be freezing out west of us, but I still got to work today, so I was glad for that.
Good. Well, we just got talking about the opening scene of the book where the nuke went off, and I was just going to say, I enjoyed, or maybe enjoyed isn't the right term, but the way that Chris talked about the fear and the dread that was inside of Morgan. You could tell that he's like, well, there's not much I can do. Let's just go back to living life. And
right.
Yeah.
What else are you going to do?
Not much, because he got a little bit pessimistic. Or remember when he was giving shit to the guys? He's like, why are you bothering carrying those masks around? They're not going to do any good anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's pessimistic. It's more realistic. Because like you said, they don't even have anything to measure the radiation.
It's like somebody else that we know always talks about, only worrying about stuff in the circle that you can do something about, right?
And that's true. And another theme that goes through this entire book, this volume, is, okay, shit happens, really bad shit that we're going to talk about later on. And guess what? Weddings have to happen. Births have to happen. You got to still go out in the field and harvest corn, because if you don't, you're hooped. No matter, what is it? Facts don't care about your feelings.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we go from there. And was this when I had written down that Eric and Fred get engaged? That happens pretty early in this book too, didn't it?
It was like the next day or something.
Yeah, because they're sitting around the fire, and Morgan pretty much says, "If you don't say anything, I'm gonna say it."
Well, that's after they got engaged. They were at the market or whatever, and he was talking to Eric, and Fred and Jess were off in another area, and yeah, and he had already put it together. Which I got to say that took long enough. As soon as she said something about having a tummy ache.
Oh yeah,
I was like,
I know. Every time I hear that line, I'm like, that was so random and out of place. I knew it even on reading number 1.
Oh
yeah, me too. Yeah, absolutely. I got to say, kind of in that same route, I learned something in every book, and I actually in this book I had never heard about reusable feminine pads.
Oh yeah, that's been around.
I mean, obviously, I know that the term coming around calling it the rag was because that's what they used to use. But I'm talking about like purposefully sewn and made, with snaps and everything. I actually looked it up, and that's what I do. Like when I hear something new in one of his books, I go start looking stuff up. And like, hey, it's education time. Pause the book.
This book was full of a lot of that prepper stuff. I enjoyed that part. So,
but I've heard of so much. It's that was just the thing. Okay, there's one other thing I learned in the book. It didn't have anything to do with prepper or anything. I'd never heard of that Paul McCartney song, and I actually had to go listen to it.
Which one was it?
Was it My Love? I think is the name of it.
Oh, really?
I think so.
Yeah, the one that Sarge sung at the reception. I'd never heard of it. I paused the book again and I went and pulled the song up and listened to it. I was like, I'm not gonna like profess to be any kind of knowledgeable person necessarily about all kinds of music, but I do listen to all kinds of music, and that's a song you would have thought I'd have heard before, but or I would have thought, but like, yeah, nope. Of course, I'm gonna say like that whole like I never was a big fan of the Beatles and those types of that type of music. I don't know. It's
It was cool because music was a big thing in this book too. But I want to go back to feminine hygiene products since we haven't had a good discussion on feminine hygiene products in a while. So I'm going to ask a stupid question.
Have you had one?
I'm sure we've had them on here before, but that's another
I'm just
story.
saying because
I wouldn't be surprised if it. I think it got brought up when they moved out to the camp with the toilet paper.
Yes, it did, absolutely, and it'll be mentioned, or at least it was discussed on last week's The Last of Us episode as well that Becky and I did. So, okay, so these reusable. This might be an absolutely stupid question, and if you don't know, Rachel or anyone else, do they work like reusable cloth diapers? Is it kind of the same principle? They're just usable and you wash them, kind of, or
I would assume more or less, but with the cloth diapers, it's basically just like really thick cotton.
Okay.
With the feminine products, and I don't have any of these.
Me either.
Probably should look into it. I'm not that freaking old. But
all the ones I saw were just regular material with what I assume was stuff sewn in the middle, and male part of the snap on one side, female part of the snap on the other side, and you just wrap them around the crotch, the panties, and snap them together. What it looked like to me. I mean,
but where it would go against the panties, it has to have something that'll stop the moisture from being able to seep into the panties. So
that's what I'm saying. Like a cotton barrier in between the two pieces of material that are sewn together is what
I opened. This
no, it's like a cotton thing that has. Okay, so Clark Deacon, apparently his wife has something like that. But
so your wife has some, even if you wouldn't want to normally use them, they're good to have on hand. Okay.
Yeah. From what I understand, you have like the cotton towards the body and something that is going to be water or fluid resistant that would go towards the panties so that it doesn't soak through.
That makes sense.
That's the difference between that and like a regular cloth diaper.
So like a vinyl or something.
Something like that.
Let's throw this in here too, because I learned something new last week on The Last of Us.
Actually, Hunter just mentioned something else that I was going to say. There's also menstrual cups.
Yes, that's what I got right here. Cups. That's okay. Yeah. So
never heard of that.
Ellie, Ellie got one on The Last of Us because it's been 20 years since the world ended, so feminine hygiene products are a difficult commodity to come across. Even though she randomly finds one package up in a shelf in a store, but yeah.
I'm going to admit to something here, too, since you're mentioning that Last of Us. I don't even know what you're talking about. I know you're talking about some series that y'all have been going through, but I'd never heard of it until you started talking about doing episodes discussing them.
I think a lot of people didn't. It was a video game from 10 years ago. It was probably the best zombie game ever made. They turned it into a great TV show, and it's almost over. So if people, they're into it, cool. So I think...
right, and I've not been into video games for, I don't know, 25 years, so...
Clark says the cloth diapers nowadays actually have a vinyl layer on the outside, keeping the moisture inside. You just have to change a wet diaper quicker than a conventional diaper. Fair enough.
Yep.
So hopefully we solve that.
That's the same thing as the female.
Only thing I know about cloth diapers is I wore them when I was young enough to need them. Yeah.
You mean you don't need them anymore?
Not yet.
You are a truck driver, so never mind.
No, there's never any schedule that is that dire that you can't stop to take care of nature's necessities. I mean, it's just not going to happen.
You would definitely argue with that. I can tell you, when I used to collect bottles on the side of the road to make money when the oil patch got slow, I can tell you there were some.
I know, and that's a big problem in my industry where nobody wants to let truckers park anywhere because of the mess they leave behind and everything. It's disgusting. I don't blame people.
Let's just say my cousin's a truck driver. He used to work in a mine, and they worked 12 on, 12 off. And he hopped in his truck one time, and there was a number 2 surprise behind the seat that somebody forgot there. So.
Oh my God.
Yep.
Oh, I would hurt somebody over that.
Yeah. So, okay, we talked about homemade feminine products. Let's talk about a few more of the prepper things that came out in this episode, because there's a lot. Now, we've talked about biltong before, right?
Yeah.
Which was cool. How about the homemade vinegars? Anybody tried that before?
I have not. That was really interesting.
Yep.
If wine and hard cider, I don't see why you couldn't do that.
Because like they said, basically just let wine go longer, and it will ferment and go sour. And I've had some homemade wine that got kind of nasty like that before.
We did some.
Okay. What's that, Nate?
We did kombucha that went a little too long too. That Aaron said that kind of turned into vinegar.
Clark says, "Man, I should get Clark on the show sometime." He says, "My wife makes apple cider vinegar." Maybe Clark and his wife, see if they want to come on. But says my wife makes apple cider vinegar. And Yozik's made it on accident, and Hunter did once on purpose. So that's cool. Might be worth trying just for the hell of it. But I got to say, I don't like apple cider vinegar. I had a friend when I was a kid that used to drink it like it was going out of style. And I don't know if you know, but if you drink too much vinegar, it comes out of your pores and you smell like vinegar. Yeah.
Like garlic.
Yep. Just like garlic. Ooh. How about the homemade air conditioner, which I forgot to mention in the 2-liter pop bottle episode, which was really fun.
See, that sounds counterintuitive to me because the way it was explained in the book, the air smaller area, and generally you think that if you speed molecules up, they heat up.
Well, I think that okay, so here's the thing. Morgan says that it lowers the house temperature by 10 degrees. Now, does it actually lower it, or is it just the perceived temperature? Because moving air tends to feel cooler than steady air, static air, right?
Depends on how hot it is. I'm telling you right now, down in Florida in the summertime, you start blowing air, and it's just like standing in front of a furnace when the air is blowing.
That's true.
It's just hot air moving. The humidity just absolutely.
Go ahead, Nate.
So one of the things I did when I was a kid, we always had we'd crack the windows open a little bit, so like maybe an inch or two, and then we had a whole house exhaust fan that was up in the attic, and it was like this 4 foot by 4 foot fan that was up in the attic that vented out of the roof. You flip that thing on with those windows cracked, man, it would drop that temperature quick.
Oh, I believe it. But it's kind of like he said, it also depends on the humidity.
Yeah.
So if you're moving air and it can actually like wick the moisture off of your skin, that cools you down. If you're blowing through hot, steamy air, it's not really going to do that much.
So I'm on the Eco Coolers website right now. They build them out of 2-liter pop bottles, just the same as Morgan did, but they look a little beefier. And it says the Eco Cooler uses 2-liter pop bottles and some principles of fluid dynamics to cool spaces down by up to 5 degrees Celsius, which would be very close to 10 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which can make a big difference for those without access to air conditioning. It says basically this air cooler works by realizing that as air speeds up, the temperature decreases, and the system uses soda bottles to speed up the small breeze and cool houses down. As the breeze hits the open end of the bottle, it's pushed and constricted through the nozzle, speeding it up and therefore cooling it down. So
now can you do multiple?
Like a whole bunch of 2-liter bottles?
Yeah, like a whole grid?
Yeah, let me see. Hang on here. I'm going to see if I can share this. See if we can find...
Well, I mean, that's basically what the book described, was basically a whole grid of them.
Can you shoot?
Oh yeah, I see it. Yeah, scroll down a little bit.
Yep, I got this. I got the thing on the same browser as the. There you go. So that's what they look like, guys. If anybody.
Okay.
So for anybody who's on the audio only, it's a 6x6 grid of 2-liter pop bottles cut in half, put through what looks like maybe a 3/4 inch sheet of plywood or foam, and yeah, so. And like Hunter says, a whole house, maybe not, but maybe a 15 to 20 foot square bedroom, right? So,
well, so if you'd put that in each window of a house, and you just, you wouldn't even have to use like what he was describing, the sheets of plastic. You could just use, I would think, sheets of cardboard, cut up cardboard boxes, and cut them to fit in the window, and cut holes and shove the bottles through, and.
Yeah. As long as the cardboard's thick enough to hold it in place.
Right.
But you wouldn't want it in any
perpendicular.
You wouldn't want it in every window. You would want it in maybe all the windows on one side so it can exhaust to the other side.
And I think you'd put it on obviously the prevailing wind side too, right? You know, with us here, it would be, you know, almost all winds come from the west and blow to the east. So you'd want it, you know, if you could. Except our house doesn't have any windows that open on the west. So anyway. Hunter
has a good idea, that 1-inch pink foam.
From the hardware store. And he also said that it would give extra insulation too. So it would keep the sunlight out, but also let the air in. And you would, like you said, you would need to have something on the other side for exhaust, or it wouldn't really work either, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's got to flow through.
How about Tatler lids? Any of you guys, they mentioned those. I've had my eye on them for years and never bought any. Anybody ever buy any?
I'm in the same boat as you. I've seen them for years, and I haven't had the nerve to try them.
Yeah, I've not bought any. I've read up on them. There is a little bit of difference in how you process with them.
Really? How so?
I cannot remember what. I just remember there was a difference in either time or something. There was a difference in how you had to process them.
You know, now that
for it to come out to work right.
I remember that too. I don't know if I can. Yeah. Anyway, we'll have to. Yeah, we'll look into it. Maybe we'll. Yeah, that's exactly it, Hunter. If I remember, aren't they something like 3 to 4 times the cost of a normal lid, or is it more than that?
Oh, are they?
I don't remember. They're quite a bit more, or they're a little more expensive. But I mean, it's not something that's like totally absurd when you think that you can just use them over and over again. I mean,
they're a great grid down option, but Yozik said Nicole didn't like them. Nicole saw, so
yeah.
But I mean, in the scenario that they're in where they can't get lids,
right,
that's your only option.
Absolutely. One more prepper thing that I thought was cool. Anybody ever look at the refreshing the old batteries?
I have.
I have too. Have you ever done it, or just watch videos on it?
No, I have a couple of old SLA batteries.
Okay.
Deep cycles that run my radio station. And I was looking into refurbishing because they're probably 4 years old.
Okay.
So, and I got a brand new gel cell down here too.
Nice.
I thought about. Oh, sorry.
Ahead, no, I know we got a little lag. Go ahead, Rachel.
I was going to actually give that a try with like some old car batteries when I contemplated where I could put in like a little bit of a battery bank. Mm-hmm. And I thought it'd be a good way to experiment on two things and, just try it all in one project.
Yeah.
I've watched a lot of videos, and the guy that did it, the one I watched, he had pretty good luck. It was, they weren't great, but I think if it means the difference between you can't go buy one at the store anymore or you go find an old battery and refurbish it, why the hell not, right? But it would be good to learn.
Yeah,
that's why we try this stuff.
I thought the yellow tops, those were gel cell. So they might not work with that. I thought they were gel.
I was thinking that too, because you couldn't, I don't know. Let's see. Yellow.
I got it funny for y'all while he's looking that up. The first thing that I ever canned was actually meat. I didn't start with something easy. I'm too stupid for that.
Did you use a pressure canner?
I used an electric pressure canner.
Okay.
It works.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm going to throw it out there. Has anybody canned meat without using a pressure canner?
Oh, without?
No. No, neither have I.
I think that you can you?
No.
Unless you want to die.
Okay, so here's the thing. Absolutely not. Do not do this at all. However, I know lots of Newfoundlanders who would can things like deer and fish in an open water canner on a wood stove that they would they had it in their head that if they could boil it for 3 to 4 hours that it would be fine. Not fine. I'm just curious if anybody else had tried it. So I got offered some meat one time.
We do a lot of venison, and we do it in our carry canner.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I've
got the Nesco, same thing. That's what I've done in the hamburger meat in.
Yep.
So, don't anybody cancel us because we're telling people to can. But, I've known people who did it, and I'm like, oh, yeah, no, not a good idea. Clark says Newfies are a different breed. Yes, you are right, brother.
Really want one of those Nescos.
So let's go into so we open with the mushroom cloud. How about the trip to England? England Air Force Base?
Yeah.
England, yeah. Anybody got any thoughts on that?
That was a hell of a ride for them to attempt, and they're lucky.
Yeah.
Very lucky. I was quite impressed. Does anybody know the geography well enough to know how far out they were when
400 miles?
100
it was 380 something miles, almost 400. So, funny note, when I was about 12, 13 years old, I lived in Florida for about 7 months, and I literally about 30 miles from where this whole story takes place, just south and west of it, little town called Center Hill, which is about something like 35 miles or something from Altoona, and like closer to like 28 miles or something from Eunice. Like I said, just to the southwest there, closer to being straight west of Orlando. And they're quite a bit further north and west of Orlando. But yeah, it's from the area where they came from. It's pretty close to, it's just shy of 400. It's less than 390, more than 380. in that area. But to go the way they went, to coming back, it would have been closer to 400 miles because they kind of went further east and down instead of cutting up at an angle.
And the thing is, there's really no shortcuts there, is there? Like, it's just most of Florida is. What's that?
There's like 2 highways, east and west.
That's what exactly.
The shortcut is the interstate. The way they went up. So
that's why everybody drives 95 miles an hour down there. I was quite impressed.
Dude, it's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, bumper to bumper, 90 miles an hour. It's like you wouldn't think with being, the amount of people down there in the population that are old people, because, typically the stereotype for old people is they drive slow. Down there, they figured out they don't have much time to go, I guess. They're getting everywhere fast.
Ready to see God, I guess. But so anybody know how far out they were that they had the road secured? Anybody catch that?
Dude, that was a ways because it was before they got to Tallahassee, and Tallahassee to Pensacola is that's a jaunt in itself.
Every time I hear Tallahassee, I always think of Zombieland.
To Morgan's truck or Morgan's car, that was 250 miles, right?
Yep.
So it was pretty close to there. They had.
That's what I thought. Yeah, it wasn't far out, was it?
So
that's pretty good.
Yeah, they had to have 100 miles out secured.
Yeah,
by the way he was describing. I mean.
Well,
so was that
wild.
Yeah, well, that's right. That's what I'm really. So that's kind of what I'm getting at here, guys. Is how do you secure 100 miles worth of? Was it the interstate? Was it they had secured, or was it
maybe?
I don't know.
They acted like it was the whole area, but I mean, not many people are going to be traipsing out through the woods and stuff. I kind of jokingly call it woods, but lots of bodies is the only way to do anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
What I figure, I guess, is if you come through with enough armor, basically, whenever they traveled across country, like Thad, he always had to worry about the overpasses or the exits, because those were the places people could hide. They're the place that the road gets bottlenecked. So if you go through and destroy whatever's there, clear them up and get rid of them, then that exactly. Hunter says make overt bad guys leave. That's what it comes down to, right? So
yeah,
I think if you can clear up, they're not going to get rid of, Billy Joe who has a hunting rifle that's standing out in the woods taking pot shots at him, but I guess they could get rid of any organized offensive or defensive, right?
Well, I mean, there was the one, and that was within their circle, so. The guys with
superiority of force.
What was that, Nate?
That was the guys with the deuce and a half and the motorcycle.
Right.
They were pretty close if you really think about it.
I never thought of that. You're right. They were, weren't they?
So,
well, they were closer to where Morgan and his group were than the Army.
Yeah.
They were. Yep. They were just up the road from them, but
I thought it was funny when they backed over his motorcycle. I enjoyed that quite a bit.
Oh yeah, took his guns. You want him back? Come find me at the police department.
Yep.
That's how you know it was fairly close. And by the way, we've got food, so you can grab your friends and come over for some food while you're at it.
We don't really want the food; we want the gas. That's what it came down to, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they bring the supplies back. Sarge goes to Eglin with them. Okay, now, do you think Sarge knew that he was going to get promoted when he went there?
Yeah, absolutely. He'd already been talking to him.
Do you think that Sarge is also that petty that he would have done all that behind Buddy's back? I can never remember his name. The one that holds the gun to Sarge's face and they put him in a sleeper and knock him out? Sheffield, yeah. Do you think that Sarge is that petty that he would have just done that to spite him, or do you think he knew there was more to it?
Okay, so
go ahead, Nate.
I think he's pretty fed up with Sheffield.
Okay, yeah.
And
it's not about petty. Even though I never served, I have a lot of insight in the way that service people relate to each other, and it's really a different language than what the rest of us speak when they're relating with each other. It's I don't even know how to explain. It's just, okay, that's the way you want to play the game. We'll play the game that way, but I'm better at it.
They talk about that a little bit. So I want to call them the defectors. The guys who basically go out while they're off to Eglin and they're patrolling or, holding down the fort for them. And then they come back and they tell, they talk to Top and say, hey, we're not coming, we're going to stay here. We like your food. But they talk about Livingston and Sheffield, and they say, how did they put it? He's good shit, but when it comes to putting on his military, how did he put it? Like when he puts on the military voice, everybody loses respect for him or something. Mm-hmm. It almost
he's
sounds
an okay guy, but not a good officer.
Yeah. What was that, Nate?
He can wear the uniform, but he can't talk the talk.
That's what it was. Yeah. What do you think, Rachel?
It's something close to that.
I don't think he knew that he was going to get promoted when they went to Eglin, but given the fact of how he and everybody there felt about the situation, it seemed like the most logical thing to do, because obviously, he couldn't put his big boy pants on, and Sheffield couldn't put his big boy pants on and run with the group. They were pissed off because he didn't want to do any engaging, and he's just trying to play it safe because, oh my God, somebody might get hurt. You're in the fucking military. That's
you guys
part
ever heard of
and parcel with it.
Have you ever heard of the Peter Principle?
The Peter Principle?
Yeah. So what it is that a person in management will always rise to one level higher than they should, because you're good at your job. Your boss looks at you and says, hey, you're good at this. You should be able to move up a layer. And then you move up another layer and you're like, hey, you're good at this. You should move up. And then finally you get to the point where you suck ass and can't do what you're doing, but you're stuck there. And I think that's kind of what Sarge was talking about, the other guys there. He said there's two ways to move up in the military. And he said one of them was just basically sitting behind a desk long enough and eventually you'll get there,
I believe Jack Spirko referred to that as moving up to your lowest point of incompetence.
Yeah.
If you take up to another level, then you'd be highly incompetent. You want to go to your lowest level of incompetence.
But I've run into a lot of bosses who moved up a little further than they should have. And and Nate's got a little smile there. So I'm thinking he's known one or two over the years, or maybe presently. I don't know. Who knows?
Yep.
So,
I plead the fifth.
Yep. And Clark says he was a reserve commander. He never wanted to be active duty, is the vibe I got. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
The guy that, played military on the weekend and liked the perks of it, but never really wanted to see active duty, right? So
I think that pegs it up right on the head.
Yeah. And Yozik said, which is often why enlisted sergeants hold more actual power than officers. I think that goes back to the leadership. The leader is the one that everyone actually listens to. Mm-hmm. That is true for sure.
Yeah.
I've heard it said a lot that sergeants run the Army.
I don't know enough about it, but they're the ones kind of the boots on the ground, aren't they?
They're the ones that they've been in long enough and they've seen enough stuff that they really know all the secrets and they communicate between each other too. There's a whole that is a whole information system and a whole. I mean, they're just the backbone of the Army. It's not like that in all the services, but definitely in the Army.
So, okay, I wanted to slide back a little bit. I had this in my notes, but now I know that getting pregnant, can happen by accident. But did anybody have any thoughts on the fact that they're bringing a baby into this crazy world?
I was waiting for it to happen.
Yeah, I assumed it would happen. But go ahead, Rach.
Yeah.
Like I say, they don't exactly have a large influx of birth control available.
No, that is true. And I always, okay, so I grew up, I've told this 1,000 times, in an evangelical home, right? And so I used to hear the end of the world preaching all the time, and they love to preach out of the book of Revelations. And this may not be in Revelation, but it's pertaining to the end of the world. But it basically says, in the end times, people will still be marrying and having babies. And I always thought that, I'm like, you can't take that away from humans, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So I think my all-time favorite line out of the entire book is Doc walks up and Morgan tells him that Fred's going to have a baby, and he goes, "How does that happen?"
Yeah.
That was
Really?
I was really expecting him to be like, you see, it's like this, Ronnie, when a guy and a gal really love each other.
You know, this is my third reading through everything, and I've kind of taken a real low-key liking to Ronnie. Like, he's becoming, I wouldn't say my favorite, but man, he's just steady. You know, he's probably the closest to a morally good person in the whole book of the guys that have seen combat, right?
Yep.
Right.
He's kind of the Rock. Out of that group, he's the Rock.
So speaking of a morally good person, addressing the elephant in the room, how ironic is it that one of the most morally good people in the whole group meets one of the most gruesome fates that you...
Oh, I know, right?
Oh,
I mean, literally burning to death has got to be one of the, if not the most excruciating way to go.
Let's talk. I want to just one more thing on the pregnant thing, and then I think we might as well talk about the burning elephant in the room or whatever, because that
the burning elephant in the room.
So
I love
Hunter says pregnancy numbers go up in long-term disasters. So do you think
anything to do?
Well, okay,
it's not wrong.
Nothing to do, but do you think there's also like a Darwinistic thing in there as well? That when a person feels like that, you know, they're closer to death, that there's this innate urge to spread the seed. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So one of the old wives' tales that I have heard, we're going after all the coyotes that are here.
Sure.
And one of the wives' tales I've heard is if you take out some of the pack, that will put the females in heat because they're losing members.
Huh.
So I'm kind of interested to see if anybody's ever heard that before, because it makes sense to me. Yeah.
And I've heard that on multiple occasions. We'll have to I'll maybe dig into that a little further, but I've heard that in the baby boom, right? The baby boomers, they came out of the Second World War, right? And you had this huge amount of people who died and were taken out of the gene pool, and it's almost like humans are like, hey, let's just fix that issue, right?
Yep. Actually, any country where there is a major issue with survival, isn't that one of the main things? If your survival is not assured, then there seems to be higher pregnancy numbers. The more assured you are of longevity and the stability of your area, the lower the pregnancy levels tend to be.
Yeah, I've heard that
too. Yeah.
Okay, Nate, if you have rabbits that are extremely well fed, do they breed well?
No.
Really?
If you have rabbits that are a little on the more lean side, do they breed well?
Yes, they do. They breed better at a lower weight.
Right.
Huh. That's interesting.
Very, very good point.
Yozik says the idiocracy theory. Yeah, you're not wrong.
Okay, the idiocracy thing is the dumbest people reproduce the most.
Yeah.
There is some truth to that.
That is the idiocracy theory right there.
Yeah. Just look at Trailer Park Boys. So anyway, yeah. Oh boy. All right. So let's talk about the attack on the town. Was that was that was during the handing out of food, or was that after?
Yes.
And
okay.
I don't want to. There's another attack coming, right, in the next book. I don't want to ruin it, but doesn't something happen?
I don't know.
I know. I don't want to ruin it, Nate, but can you remember? I'm thinking
there is something, but I don't think it's on the scale.
Okay. Maybe I'm misremembering something. So anyway, go ahead. You wanted to say something, Nate, about the attack.
My thought process is Morgan fucked up.
Bringing his family along?
No.
Okay.
Announcing he's handing out food in the town.
Good
so
point.
That is it. Jesus, I never thought of that, Nate. Yeah,
I mean,
so basically
you can have everybody in town show up for that.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, the thing is, if you're passing out food, do you not want to let as many people know as you can realistically get to? He wasn't thinking in terms of making the entire populace a big bullseye. So, yes, it was a mistake, probably in one hand, but how else are you going to reach the people who need the help the most? It's damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah, I can see that, but my second going through on this thing, that was my thought process on that whole situation. It's like, everybody would have come home had you not gone around. I mean, they almost had it at the first place, handing out the food when everybody rushed the truck.
I thought that too, Nate. There would have been other ways to do it. You know what I mean? You could have done something like, I don't know, give it to the leaders of the town, and then as people come to town, give it to them and mark their hand with a friggin' Sharpie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I know they wanted, I don't know. Like Chris Dixon said, his ego got a hold of him, because I think there was a part of, hey, we want to be known as the people who went and got the food and handed it out,
Yeah.
So Hunter says, maybe you can elaborate, Hunter. Hunter's in the chat and he says he has a problem with Micah. So what do you guys think of Micah? I mean, obviously I know what we're supposed to think of him, but
wasn't he suspicious from like the first second?
Yeah. I don't know how he lasted this long in the book.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was wondering. Because Morgan normally, if somebody rubs him the wrong way, he goes up and picks a fight with them and then forces their hand. But he didn't do that this time, which was weird.
Yeah.
And
I think
go ahead.
this go around, he just let Sarge handle it. Really.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I couldn't remember where Niagata came back into the picture. I thought it was the original.
I did too. I'm surprised that Chris kept him alive for so long to have such an anticlimactic death.
I know, right?
I was like,
his death needed to be way bigger. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was, it was like in a movie where their death happens off screen. Mm-hmm. You're like, and so was walking to the road, walking to the store and got hit by a truck, but you don't see anything. Mm-hmm. And you're like, probably the nastiest, biggest bad in the whole book series gets, we get a little story time, like, hey, I shot him in the back and then shot him in the face for good measure. But Jesus,
and you were expecting something more like on what the hell's that movie? Final Destination, where the girl steps out in the street and gets hit by the bus.
I don't know.
I wanted to see Sarge get him.
Yeah. It's some legitimate conflict resolution, right? Like, because that dude, or Shane, because was it Shane? Am I wrong? No, who?
Yeah,
Sean and Shane got their asses whooped by him. Yeah. That's why they shot him.
But
no, what would have been really good is if they'd have switched those rows where Sean and Shane followed Micah and Dalton followed Niagata, and then they had a great big fight, because that would have been a match right there.
Yeah. I think yes, if Dalton had went full fucking Viking on him, really, I mean, pulled out a hatchet or something and fought him, kind of similar to what Morgan did when remember when he went crazy with his handmade hatchet or whatever?
Yep.
You're right, John. I mean,
On
of course,
Billy
we're playing Monday morning
Yeah, I mean,
armchair quarterback, but
you had that with what's her face and
yeah, I know who you mean. The leader
Jamie
of the,
and the redhead.
yes, Jamie and the lady from the camp. Yeah.
Singer.
Singer.
Singer,
Man,
yes.
how do you remember that? Yeah, Singer sewing
I
machine.
mean,
There you go.
you had that whole fight where she stuck the knife in her. And this one's like, well, I just shot him. Fuck it.
And so Chris is right about this. So he says, I think Chris thought the readers wanted him dead, so he found a way to kill him. I think, here's just my guess here, is that Niagata was a loose end that the readers asked about. And they're like, because I'm guessing maybe Chris never had any intentions of bringing him back, but everybody wanted to make sure that, you know, the loose end got cut off. So I'm thinking that's what happened probably.
Yeah, but you're right. He should have reversed those roles. And
that's fucking genius, John. That's probably the best idea anybody's come up with in nine episodes of the show.
I would have liked to have seen that.
Yeah.
That would make great TV.
Okay, so I have that in my notes tonight that this really needs to be turned into like a 3 to 4 season HBO or Amazon Prime series. I think.
Yeah.
The more I listen to this, I'm like, it really could be. And
it could be multiple series. You could almost do a series per book, except for a couple of them, the shorter, like book 3. I mean, that would be a boring season, but.
And now this book, okay, when I first finished it a couple of years ago or whenever it was, I thought, all right, it seemed like filler for a minute. And then I started thinking back. It's a 300, what did I write down here? We got, of course I listened to it, but it's only 332 pages. So it's not a long book. Mm-hmm. And when you think of what happens in this book, you got a mushroom cloud in the sky, trip to the Air Force Base, an engagement, birth announcements, attack on the town, death of Bobby, torture and hanging, Danny shooting a guy in the face, the poor dog.
A lot of stuff.
2 weddings, the power gets turned back on, and we get resolution with Niagata, Micah, and the Cubans, all in 332 pages. Yeah. So, so let's talk about poor Bobby, because I think I only finally caught what happened in this third reading. I don't think I caught it before that.
Yeah, so, I totally missed who that was the first go through.
I don't know how I missed it either. But so you want to tell the story, Nate? What happened?
So
you can be the bad guy.
Yeah, I can be the asshole. Mortar goes off. Morgan sees a body or somebody running through the street on fire, and he flat out says he couldn't tell who it is.
No, and you couldn't.
Right. And then they find out once the smoke clears, everything lands, that she is no longer there.
Right.
And Morgan then realizes she's the one they saw running through the street on fire.
Right.
Which in reality is probably better for her to go that way than dealing with the wounds. And they even talk about that in the book.
They did. Actually, that is Dalton with the when he shot his soldier or in the street, because I don't care. I mean, burns are one of them things that have got to be one of the worst recovery periods in the best of times. Could you imagine?
Yeah, worst pain that you can deal with, because it's nerve pain. But that is going to be so hard on Mel, because I didn't realize how long, until it discussed it in this book, how long they had been friends. Her and Bobby had been friends before Morgan, before Danny.
Mm-hmm.
Since childhood.
I mean, that's like losing a sibling.
Yeah.
That
Chris
you grew up with.
To go and kill her off. I'm like, you asshole. And then poor Morgan's dog too. I know it, anyway, but we'll talk about that in a minute.
Morgan took longer to kill those two than I would have. I'll say it right now.
What's that, Nate?
I missed the dog.
I don't. Yeah.
How did you miss it?
Was that after the beers?
No, it was before. Yeah, but that's okay.
That was right after they came back, I think, really.
It was.
I can't remember.
It was after Bobby died, but before. It was the night before. Okay, so Morgan got sent out to collect flowers by Mel for Fred.
Yeah.
And Morgan is out, and he's like, it was kind of a stupid, well, Lassie.
Two of the dogs were upset.
What's that? 2
dogs were upset, and they wanted him to follow.
Yes. So, come with me, Dad. Timmy fell down a well. And
I remember that from the first time I went through. I don't know how I missed it this time.
We also need to talk about this in a minute. I'm just putting it up here for a minute so we don't forget. But yeah, so, and then of course, Morgan goes in the woods and you're like, huh. And then he smells it and he knows what happened. And yeah, I would fucking shoot them all in the face too. It's funny how we get as upset or maybe even a little more over the death of a dog than we do over the death of a main character. But I get it. It sucks. And yeah, I think, yeah, anyway. So you're right. Rach, he took a little while to shoot him. I actually misremembered that part, and maybe I'm confusing it with an earlier section in a different book. But I thought he let the one guy on the ground live. I'd forgot he shot all 3 of them.
2. There was only 2.
Was there only 2?
There was only 2. There was 3 dogs.
Okay,
the 2 dogs were upset, and he was following them because he thought that maybe little sister got bit by a snake. Maybe she got hurt. And then when he got closer and he smelled the cooking meat, that was when it occurred to him.
And like Morgan said, he's like, didn't you see his collar? I get it. I know. But you could tell those dogs were not
She walked
wild.
right up and let them shoot her point blank.
Right.
That is not a dog that is not happy in a home.
Exactly. That was, yeah. They dealt with that in 1 Second After as well. Remember, I don't know if have you read that? Yeah. We'll have to.
Yeah, I'm not going to go into 1 Second After.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that another day.
Yeah.
What's that, Rach?
I'm going to read that.
Yes.
We should do 1 Second After once we get done with book 11.
I think so too. Absolutely. Yeah, it was. Okay. Yozik said that tore me up. I was driving when I was listening to it and I was a wreck. I had to come home and cuddle my pup for an hour. Oh, yeah. I get it. Yeah, absolutely. For sure.
I will totally admit I'm the person that, I won't even think twice before running into a burning building over my dogs. Aside from 3, maybe 4 possible humans.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I'm the same way. Yeah, dogs, they're just, I don't know. It's because they're innocent creatures, I think. I think that's what it comes down to.
They're indiscriminate love.
Yeah. But, so I will say, I do appreciate Angry American for doing the Game of Thrones thing and killing off a main character. It was...
Yeah, right.
He also does it in book 11. I'm obviously not going to spoil that for anybody, but, it was a big surprise that happened again. And, yeah. So Chris Dixon here. He says, when we met the Canadian, I immediately thought, who's expendable? Either Jamie or Bobby was getting axed. Standard storytelling. You can't add one without removing another. That's fair. I never thought of that, Chris. Sure.
Does that mean they're keeping the Canadian?
Well, okay. I don't think the Canadian came back with them, though.
Not in book 10.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't add a character. They just brought somebody in to give him shoes and, take him on his way.
So that was something I specifically asked Chris about when he was on the show, because I was like, yes, finally a Canadian. And he's like, yeah, he basically said, we'll see more of him. And I'm like, oh, thank God.
Oh, okay. So that's good to know. Oh, by the way, you're talking about 1 Second After. I just started listening to that today.
Oh, good. You know what? That's a book I wish I could go back and listen to for the first time over again. That I actually read that instead of listened to it. And that is really, it's either that or On the Beach were the first 2 that I ever listened to. And they are, oh yeah, that got my love for this kind of stuff for sure.
Yeah, it's 1 Second After is definitely dark.
It is dark, but here's the thing. It has its dark moments, but it's still it has some dark moments. Yeah, it does. But what I want to say is it has dark moments, but it's still, a story of triumph or overcoming. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, it is. There are. Oh boy, he does not shy away from the moments in there at all.
No.
Hunter says on the beach. I'm wondering if he's asking a question. But yeah, he said it's a good book. Yeah, On the Beach is a dark book too. But I like it.
That's the original. That's the old one that you just posted.
Yes.
Yeah, I listened to that.
No, not the really old one.
Okay.
Yeah, On the Beach takes place in the 50s, maybe.
Okay.
I can't remember for sure, but yeah, it's a good one. It's worth listening to, but it's dark. Wow, is it dark?
I'll find it.
Yeah, it's good. So we got Niagara. Let's talk about Micah and the Cubans. Almost sounds like a cheesy bar band.
Right?
Yeah. So they catch Micah red-handed. He has, is it the green mic? Did they call it a green mic? I can't remember what it was, but he had a two-way radio where he was calling in coordinates. I want to go down and say he is quite possibly the slimiest character of the entire series, or pretty damn close. You know, he's up there with Singer. Who else would be a slimy character like that?
I mean, Niagara was one of the villains.
But you know,
he was just evil.
See, he's worse than a villain because he's just whoever's bitch will pay him at the moment. So
that's what it comes down to.
Hire.
You know, with Niagara, you at least knew what you were in for with Niagara,
and
right?
Singer too. I mean, at least they picked a side. At least you can respect the fact, even if they were wrong, that they at least were standing up for what they believed. This dude just like whatever, whoever's good for the moment. He's like a freaking Tijuana whore.
Yeah, well, just take it where you can get it, right? And he really was. And what Yosik says, Billy. Do you guys remember a Billy? I don't.
He
remember.
was the guy that.
He was the leader of the
guys that were chasing the girls through the woods.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it's so hard to find a date.
Yeah.
He was the one that Morgan took the hatchet to.
Yeah.
Yes, he was. This is fun going back and remembering. Or how about the guy who hung the black kid, right? You know. Yeah. So there's
rednecks. Did they even have a name for him?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was, but I remember because he caught up with him later in the series.
Yeah, Thad caught him stealing pigs, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
What goes around comes around. You gotta love it.
No, Thad caught.
Yeah, one of them.
Yeah,
one was the guy that hung the kid, and the other one was a friend of his.
Because that's where I remember. That's what I was misremembering. So remember how I said I thought they left one alive? Because Thad left the one guy alive. He killed the one guy, but he made the other guy. I think they put him on the work details, didn't they?
Yep.
Yeah, but he ended up killing him too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did they?
Oh.
Yeah, because remember after he killed him, he said, "Now it's done."
Was that? Yeah, I think I can't remember. Oh well. So Micah and the Cubans, the bar band that you hear on a Wednesday afternoon because they're not big enough to come in on a Thursday evening. So
makes me think of the Sultans of Soul.
What do you think? The Cubans, were they legitimate when they said we're just soldiers following orders?
Isn't that the regular line?
Yeah, I mean it is.
So
isn't that what every soldier says when they get caught?
Sure. I mean, that's what the Nazis said. So,
yeah.
Yep.
Because everybody's always following somebody's order, maybe except for the president, right? When it comes down to it.
Yeah. I mean, they had exactly what was coming to them.
Sure.
I thought it was pretty funny that Sarge went to town, or Sarge and Dalton went to town on Micah.
Yeah.
So you knew damn well when Morgan shows up in the morning and they describe Micah hanging there.
Oh yeah.
With an oak.
I had to listen to that a couple of times so I could get the visual on that.
I picture him like this or something. Is that what you?
No, it was back.
Oh,
his arms were behind him.
And they
see, that's not what I got. What I got is they said his hands were together and his feet were together. His hands were under his legs. And then they had the wood the bar went under his arms, and he was hanging from that.
I don't know. All I can say is that must have been absolute pure misery.
The way I got it is like his hands were tied together, like he was in a sitting position and his hands tied together under his legs, and the bar went up under his arms.
Ooh, in
front of him against his chest.
Yeah, and you knew damn well that it was Dalton who did it. They didn't even have to tell you. You're like, yep. I would love. I said before, I would love Chris to do a book or two on Sarge's origins. I would love to have a 2 or 3 book series following Dalton through his life before the world ends, because that dude, he had to have been more than a fucking prison guard. There's whatever he is, either he's lying or he's been through some shit, because he's a twisted dude.
He's a few levels of what the hell.
Yeah. Like he can speak Russian. You know, what else can't the dude do? Like
I know. I mean, he's
multilingual.
Yeah.
Not even bilingual.
I'm thinking military police, and that's where the prison guard thing come in.
Could be.
Could easily be.
Yeah. Were you going to say, Nate?
He's like Morgan. He's a jack of all trades.
Right.
And I think that's what everybody kind of likes about him.
Well, when I talked to Chris, and this is probably where it comes from too, Dalton is Dalton's based on Alan Kay, I believe is the guy's name, who won the first season of Alone, and him and Chris are best friends, or really good friends in real life. And when he talks about Alan and you hear about it, Alan sounds like the dude that just knows something about everything. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, but you're right. He is kind of, how do you put that? Would you call him a comparable to Morgan, or maybe a little darker?
In his skill set, I would say so.
Yeah. He says Hunter's okay. Dalton is every atrocity that every human has committed against another. He's an evil dude. So what do we think? Is he the opposite of Niagata? Or is he the same as Niagata, except we're just lucky to have him on the good side?
Yeah, I would go with that.
Okay. I love this whole dichotomy in this book series, and I've played the devil's advocate a few times. When you look at it, I love the conversations where the protagonists talk and they justify what they're doing based on their, and because I get it. But what I love about it is that I can always picture, for instance, the Russians or the Cubans having those same goddamn conversations on their side, saying we're in the right, you know. Or how about Niagata, you know, when the leader of the camp's like, you need to send him in. Whatever they're doing, everybody thinks they're doing it because they're supposed to, right? At least I think, other than maybe Jeffrey Dahmer, I don't know, but man.
The big difference that I can find between Dalton and Niagata was evil enough that he even creeped out the people he worked for.
Oh, I'm sure he creeps the hell out of Morgan. I
Dalton?
think he's even said that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think there's many times that Dalton has creeped people out. The fact that he'd just go in the woods for 2 or 3 days and come back, or just kind of be floating around the periphery of it. You know what I mean? Like he's just sort of there. I think, I think he definitely creeps people out. And I've never thought about that before, but I think they're kind of a yin and a yang, maybe. It'd be nice to know a little more behind Niagata, but yeah. This is good. I've never seen this before, but Hunter says war stands for we are right.
Yep.
And Yozik says Dalton creeps people out. He sure does. There's many occasions where people mention that. And he is a strange bird. But then you have to think into consideration the fact that he spent all that time on the forge to make the rings for people. I don't see somebody like Niagata doing, I don't think I'm going to guess there wasn't an altruistic bone in Niagata's body. I think everything he did was, you know what? This is the line. Now, let's talk about this. So Sarge, when he is talking to, I think it was Morgan, and they talk about the need for torture, or Sarge's view on the need for torture. And I thought it was cool because it kind of sums up what they've done all along. And Sarge says that torture is only necessary in war to extract information. And he says, if you go beyond that, you're basically just hungry for violence, and basically said when you step past that line, that's when you become an evil person. So maybe that's the view that he had.
I would agree with that, and I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but that is definitely something I agree with. It happens. It's a reality, and
because there's no white and black, good and bad. I mean,
No.
there's obviously the good side in this book, and there's obviously the bad side. But the good people do bad things, and if we got to see it, there'd be days that the bad guys go home and kiss their kids goodnight and read them bedtime stories, right? So
yeah,
That was the same thing they said about the Nazis. The doctors that were doing all the horrible atrocities.
Sure.
That was one side, and then the other side was they went home. They were the loving husband, the loving father. It's two sides of the coin. You do what you have to in this circumstance, and you do what is your family in the other circumstance.
Every single time somebody gets arrested as a serial killer, people are like, I had no idea he was the nicest guy in the world, because BTK, bind, torture, and kill, was a deacon at his church, right? So it's possible. People do it with the best of them.
Yeah.
So I think it was kind of cool that Micah, I really loved how Micah met his end, I have to say. It was cathartic. Is that the right word I'm looking for?
Yeah.
What do you guys think about how Morgan dealt?
Him playing that card or trying to play that card with Sarge.
Yeah.
Man, that fucking backfired.
Because he played his own
beautiful moments.
When the first time I heard him say that, even before Sarge gave his dialogue, I knew that Micah was who. I'm like, he just played his last fucking card.
Yeah,
and he's got nothing left now. Because before, like Sarge said, I didn't know what you know. Now I know what you know, and now I know I'm going to make you tell me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So funny. And then Morgan played him. That's the kind of sick and twisted bit that Morgan is too, which I don't begrudge him at all. I mean,
he played him, but I think the judge also saw the need for it too.
Sure. And it was, Morgan kept it at arm's length, right? He's like, hey, what's the judge's name again?
Mitch.
Yeah, I like Mitch and his wife. They're great people. But Morgan's like, hey, we need to deal with this.
Yeah.
But it was funny because you could see how Micah wanted to believe that Morgan was telling the truth. You know what I mean? He absolutely could. Like, it was one of those things where you knew that he wanted to. He probably knew deep down inside that he was going to meet his fate at the end of a rope, but he kept in his mind like, okay, if I confess, I'll make it. If I walk up on the gallows to talk to people, I'll be safe up here. Like, what kind of mental gymnastics do you have to tell yourself to walk up on the gallows and think you're not going to get hung, right?
Right.
What level of delusion do you need to be
right? But I mean,
so unless you're evil, everybody that does stuff that's against their internal moral code want to confess it anyway. So that's easy to get. But I do like to think you talk about Morgan being, and that, twisted side of him. I like to think that everybody's a little bit sick and twisted. I mean, at least it helps me to feel like I'm, at least somewhat normal.
What, I was like, yeah. So when he ended up on, do you think somebody put a shorter rope on him, or was that because his neck didn't break like the Cubans?
It just happens sometimes when people are hung.
Yeah.
I just wondered if maybe somebody had put a shorter rope there, but I guess they wouldn't know which one Micah was going to drop on, right?
So that's also why, if you look back in history, there were two ways that they would sentence people when it come to hanging. There would either be they would sentence to be hung till death by hanging, or they would be sentenced to being hung until dead.
So
I know those different things.
death by hanging is basically what they mean. Well, that's for their neck to be broken, and hung until dead is basically where they get suffocated to death.
I can see that. Yeah, and because that's always, there's been times in movies where, well, okay, it's like in the Old West when they put him on a horse and then they slap the horse. That was always but then because building gallows is a lot of work, right? So
right, and I will say, if you don't tie the noose right, that can contribute to the not breaking the neck too. That's why the noose, the way it's tied, is it's crucial, because it pulls your neck in the way that most of the time it works to where it snaps your neck and it's instant death. But
all I can say is that you fellers all know way too much about proper tying of nooses and neck breaking. So.
History. I love history.
Hey. One of your daughters, when you had that little family thing on here, one of your daughters was talking about how to hide the bodies.
That is very true. Just to say, John, I'm just gonna, or if you want to mute, there's been some kind of background noise on your mic. That's okay. I just didn't, I didn't want to cut you off, but I just wanted to let you know that there was a little bit of noise there.
No, I'm putting groceries up, and I had the door open too long, and the stupid thing is it's smart enough to start beeping and let you know that you left the door open.
That's okay. Go ahead, Nate.
No, go ahead. Okay. I lost it.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, no, wait. All right. How many of you saw the video of Saddam being hung?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, Yep. Been a long time, but yeah, because they didn't break his neck, did they? That, you think that was done on purpose?
Probably.
Yeah. Yeah. So
some people deserve to suffer more than others.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and then when nobody stopped him either, right? He just walked up. Danny he was there, right? That was pretty intense when he stood there and stared at the guy, stared him in the face. Yeah.
Dies, pulls out the pistol, and bam, done. Yeah.
Didn't that happen? I was trying to think of someone else that had. Anyway, I know there's a lot of things that kind of happen a couple of times in the story, or like similar kind of.
That's the first time somebody's been hung and then shot in the face.
I was trying to think of who. There was somebody else got shot in the face, though, is what I was trying to remember. But
there's been a lot that have been shot in the face.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, yeah, there have been.
That's hard to narrow down.
What's that?
So that's kind of hard to narrow down at this point.
Yeah, it's true.
Just saying.
I picked 2 1-star reviews from Goodreads.com that I thought we would. They're not horrible, and there may be some legitimacy to them, but let me see.
They were good.
Yeah.
I read them this time.
Oh, did you? Okay.
I did. I read them this time.
This one said, really enjoyed the beginning of the series. I can't believe this is already book 9, but I'm being honest, the storytelling has been going downhill for a while now. Pages and pages go by describing insignificant banter and interactions. It reads more like a screenplay with, I walked to the corner of the room, turned and flipped him the bird. He grinned. I winked. Then we both laughed before I went outside to slop the hogs. I've listened with Audible for the whole series and really loved the books. The characters are really fantastic. Oh, that's into the next one. So what do you think about the dialogue?
It needs to be there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of books that I read, I've listened to, and I've gone to watch the movie, and it's like, where's that fucking part? Where's that fucking part?
Right.
Because it's all the little shit that happens that makes a book, a 900 pages or something.
And Stephen King's great at dialogue too. I mean, I love his stuff because his books are long, and
it's what makes the characters real to you and not just pawns.
It makes the characters real. It makes the world feel lived in, and it makes you feel like you're experiencing the world of the characters because we don't walk around and go from one high point to the next in life. We don't go from somebody getting hung and shot in the head to a wedding. There's all that filler in between where we talk about things. And, I love talking about Tarantino because he's a friggin' master, but they asked him how he makes such great dialogue. He says, I just put two people in a room and get them talking. And you get somebody like John Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson talking about the difference between, oral sex and a foot massage, right? Like it's some of the best dialogue you're ever going to find, but that's how people talk, right?
Yeah. So one of my favorite books, and this is, I know it's a long book, but it was a shitty set of movies, was Ayn Rand, Atlas Shrugged.
Oh, I got to read. Everybody tells me I need to read that. I haven't read it yet. So
great book.
Okay.
It's an awesome book. My God, those movies are the shittiest movies I've ever seen in my life.
We should have a discussion on something, but I would say that about 70 to 80% of the time, the book is way better than the movie.
Yeah.
It's really hard to turn. Now, in the day and, in our modern time of prestige HBO series, it's a little easier because you can tell a story over 8, 9, 10 episodes or, and that's where we get some of these really great attempts at telling these stories. Well, but traditionally, go ahead.
They strung Atlas Shrugged out into 3 2-hour movies.
And it's not that long of a book, is it?
No, the audio book is 64 and a half hours.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Wow. Yeah, it's like 1,200 pages.
Wow.
And what were the movies?
What's that?
What were the movies?
Atlas Shrugged Part 1, 2, and 3.
Really?
Oh, and they follow Part 1, 2, and 3 in the book. It is horrible. The low budget. 2000s.
Okay.
I want to say. But it's real low budget bullshit.
So
it's just,
So now I'm going to tell you, I've never read the Lord of the Rings books, but I know there's lots of people out there who love them. Now, from what I've been told, the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings films are some of the best adaptations to book that you can ever find, especially the director's cuts. And then he goes and so you've got 3 great big novels that he turns into 3 great big movies. And then he takes a tiny little book called The Hobbit and turns it into 3 great big movies.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, what the hell happened?
Yep. Money.
Yeah. So did anybody see that Warner Brothers is getting ready to release more Lord of the Rings movies somehow?
Nope.
Not sure how they're going to do it, but it can't be any worse than the Lord of the Rings on Amazon Prime, from what I understand. So
can't be any worse than the Marvel set that's been going on.
Oh, it's been so bad. Yeah. I haven't watched anything. I haven't watched one since Spider-Man that came out after the last Avengers. That was good, and the rest, But all right, next one. For Conflicting Home, I found myself barely able to get through it. What I really had a problem with was how much time was spent with one character telling another character the exact same thing that I had just experienced right along with them listening to the book. The characters would recount the story in what felt like almost the same level of detail to one another. Said, I do like the series, but I feel American is groping for a storyline now. Love the survivalist series start to the start. The darker side of humanity and how fast things dissolve. The last 2 installments have tailed off into more of a military story. As much as I enjoyed one man's arduous journey to get back to his home and family, his new role of protector against Chinese, Cuban, and Russia is stretching it a bit. My lowest score for the series so far. I don't know. What else do you do? Like it is a stretch, sure, but here's the thing. And this is what people always like, well, how far-fetched is it that somebody goes through all this shit? Well, it's only far-fetched because you're following them through it. Everybody in their life at the point you're in has survived a whole bunch of shit that if you went back and looked at, you're like, how did I survive? Or whatever it happens to be, right? And people always call it plot armor in a book. Well, I guess, but all you're really doing is following a really interesting character who's been lucky enough to survive their whole life, right?
Right.
And every one of us is the character. We're all the protagonist in our own story who have been lucky enough to survive up to this point. So I don't know.
And in reality, there aren't that many people left. Did anybody catch the number? I don't remember if it was in this book or the last book. Of how many Americans are actually living?
I think it was the last book.
80 or 90% died, wasn't it?
Yes, 90% died.
So you would be down to around 30 million people.
No, we'd be down to 3.
You've got 300 million, right?
330.
So 10% of that would be 30 million. But you take 30 million, that's not much more than the population of New York City, really. Yeah. You know, about, what is that? About 1.5 times the population of New York?
Yeah. Illinois right now is 10 million, 11 million.
So just think about, and the thing is that it would have been the majority of people who died would have been in the cities, 100% guaranteed.
Oh, yeah.
So you've got, Chris Dixon says that's Canada. Ain't that the truth? But so you basically have people spread all over God's creation. So other than these small little pockets of people, it must feel like a wasteland. Yeah. Plus the fact you can't travel,
Yep.
But it's not like there's a census or anything going on. How are these numbers based? How many people are just roaming around the wilderness and not ever seeing more than 10 people in a month?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm sure, I'm sure that it's a ballpark, but they probably base it on the fact that, you can go into a community and see 90% of the people here are dead and 90% of the people there are dead. So, I'm sure it's not 100% accurate, but they probably got a decent idea.
Yep.
And we also got to think that the rest of the world is still put together for the most part. So, and that's what I always forget. You've got places like Canada and Great Britain who may or may not be doing aerial surveys or may or may not have access to, Google Maps, that kind of shit, Google. Yeah.
And they mentioned that Canada is pretty well untouched.
I know, which is crazy.
They compared it to Switzerland.
Yeah. Hunter says he wonders how the Amish would fare. That's an interesting
better than everybody else.
Yep.
Would they notice?
Amish country.
What's that, John?
I was just wondering, would they notice? I mean,
they might not.
Really.
But the more, I don't know. And the Hutterites a little bit. I bet even communities like that are still somewhat contingent on outside inputs, right? Like the idea, not a lot. Now, I think the Amish would be the least, but there would, I'm sure they would get by. Let's put it that way. But I'm sure there'd be things that would, they would miss for sure. Hunter says, because everyone that is close to them knows that they know how to, talking about the Amish. Yeah. And Yozik says they only noticed because Walmart was closed. Do the Amish go to Walmart?
Yeah, some do. Yeah.
Okay. I know the Hutterites love Walmart. Every time you go there, they got their big 15-passenger vans and they're filling it up. So, well, guys, we've been an hour and a half, and I think we have, because you know what they say, if you keep beating a dead horse, you only get a bigger mess, right? So, John and Rachel, you guys have not read beyond book number 9?
Nope.
No.
All right. So we need predictions. Is the whole world going to end in a fiery disaster that nobody makes it out alive? Or what do you think?
There's too many.
Of course not.
I tried. So let's go with Rachel first. Rachel, what's your prediction for book 10?
Oh, I don't know. Is Sarge and Miss Kay going to end up tying the knot? They already had the double wedding. They could have a double wedding with Jess and Doc. So they could
Amy
have
and
double wedding.
Jamie and
Ian.
Ian and Sarge, and you still got several couples there that.
Who's the next one getting knocked up?
Or knocked out?
Yeah.
Or knocked. Well, somebody's going to get knocked out. You know that much. There's got to be at least one more person getting hung.
Yep.
I'm going to mess with your head a little bit. Do you guys remember that cow that they shot in the middle of the road way back when?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That comes back to play.
The biltong from it.
That comes back to play a very big part in book number 10.
Yep.
I couldn't understand. I figured that I automatically, when they brought it up, I thought it belonged to the guy with the milk that they were trading with.
I'm not going to tell you, because now that was pretty good, wasn't it, Nate?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I love how Chris sets these little not Easter eggs, but these little breadcrumbs earlier on. Because how many books ago was that? It's 2 or 3 books ago, right?
2 or 3, yeah.
Yeah. And so that cow plays a huge part in book 10 and 11. So
yeah, he's setting it. It's being set up because Cecil even kind of sets it up a little bit too.
Yep. Yeah, I love Cecil. I think Cecil's a lot. I'd love to meet Cecil in real life. He'd be a good guy to work in the fields with, and he can tell stories, guaranteed.
Yep.
I got a baby invading.
Oh, hello, sweetheart. And yes, Yozik says book 10 brings power to the group and a striker battle. What is?
That was one of the things that I actually think I might have taken a screenshot of. Is that the one I took a screenshot of? I took a screenshot of one of the 5-star reviews.
Okay.
Which I was actually going to bring up as a counter to your first 1-star review.
Yes, go for it if you got it.
Yeah, I actually did a screenshot with my other phone so I could be on 2 at the same time.
The striker thing was that tank thing that they brought back from Eglin.
Right.
Yep. So this was called A Good Slowdown. It was good to have a day-to-day look in their lives, and the fact that they have a striker now will probably be getting pretty hairy soon. Just when things slow down and get to a steady pace, boom, it gets you. I love this series.
Yeah, and they're not wrong. Mm-hmm. I think Chris has done a good job at peaks and valleys, goes from, excitement, crazy battle to everyday life. And he struck a pretty good balance. It's like, I kind of have fun again with the Last of Us series as we go along, because people bitch. They're like, well, that episode didn't have a lot to do with the story, or it didn't, and you're like, well, it does, but when you reach back and look at it as a whole, the quiet character development stories play just as big a part as the rest of them, right?
Yep.
Right.
And the concept is you're rebuilding life.
Right. Yeah.
Rebuilding life means day to day what the hell is going on.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I like the behind the scenes look at the politics and rebuilding the law enforcement and all of that monotony, like even the things like Thad building a water system, with raised tanks and that sort of thing, and talking about how they built it, that's something I didn't even talk about tonight. The hardware store, how Danny has a hardware store. I love that. Yeah, I would. I'm like, yeah, that's it. I love it because there's so much you can do with it. But so, what about you, John? Oh, go ahead, Rach.
Let's feed the chickens for free. Take some roadkill and hang it up, and let the maggots fall down to the chickens. They get free protein.
Yeah,
I've seen that online where I've actually seen videos of them doing that, but the fact that it's actually being thought about and put into action, well, yeah, that's kind of stuff you need to do. That is part of the day-to-day stuff, even if it's gross.
Even how about the fact that Morgan went to visit Batman and his wife to get fruit scraps or fruit peelings to make so he didn't have to include that, but it was a great interaction because you're like, well, what do you do in this world? Well, if you want to get something, you need to travel to get it, and you need to interact with people. And hey, it just so happens that they were peeling. What were they peeling? I want to say
the muscadine grapes.
Yeah, that's it. And they had the peelings left. So sure, why not, right? So how about you, John? What's your predictions for the next book?
I got to be honest with you. I have not thought about it near enough to answer that question. I really thought that there would be more. it's got to lead up to them getting, with the introduction of the striker, especially, it's got to lead up to them getting some payback for what happened before with that other vehicle getting blown up where the guy burned up and Dalton had to shoot him and all that. They haven't got revenge for that yet.
That is true. And something that was mentioned in this book that I forgot about and we didn't talk about, Sarge now has the location of all of these people. So, and that's pretty obvious. I mean, they made a big deal
and he even said where it is. Yeah.
Yeah. What's that, Rachel?
All of the people?
So yeah, all the Russians.
Remember when Micah says, I'll tell you where everybody is.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they made it is easy to miss, but they made it fairly clear that he didn't just know who they were, but that because Sarge is like, I now know where all the Russians and all the Cubans are. So, yeah. Well, it's going to be a good book. I'm excited. I can't wait. And like I said, there is the cow plays a big part in the next book. So we'll let you think about that. I can't wait to hear your thoughts next month. Yeah, we'll be able to do next month, and then May's we'll probably have to have a little bit later because I'll be in for LFTN. So, all right, want to go around the horn? What's everybody up to? Well, John, where do we find you? Telegram, right?
Yep. You know it.
Or behind the wheels of a big rig, delivering the help and support the infrastructure of North America. Hey.
Yeah, luckily I don't ever do any deliveries, but yes, I do relay stuff back and forth between Tulsa and Albuquerque. So,
and swear at a bunch of four-wheelers on a regular basis.
I will neither confirm or deny the language that's used.
How about you, Ray? What have you been up to?
At the warehouse that I work at, we were watching a truck driver take about 20 minutes to try and back into a door on an empty freaking dock.
Oh, no.
No other tractor trailers anywhere. He just had to back up to one door. And yeah, he had a whole audience sitting there watching him try at it for like 20 minutes.
Sucks. Oh, that sucks when people are watching too.
I need to take a picture of our dock at the shop, Rachel. You will laugh your ass off. It is so funny to watch these guys back into that dock.
Did this dude get his license in a Cracker Jack box or what?
I don't know, but I was coming back from break and I saw this one truck. I won't say the name. I'm watching this.
Right?
Was he a Swift driver?
Was he
very
right?
behind the wheel? Sorry. Oh, geez, that's okay.
But yeah, I'm watching this driver try to back in. Once again, there's like two all the way down at door 62. He's trying to back in over at door 52. So, plenty of room. It's all open. He's got somebody outside from one of the other trailers trying to direct him to back up, and he's still taking like a half dozen tries at it.
And those fellers are on
with
the
the spotter.
Yeah.
And that entire end of the dock empty.
Well,
how about you, Nate? If people want to follow you, you're one half of something, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm the bearded half of Chick's Homestead.
The bearded chick, yep.
He's the bearded
chick. Currently, we release a podcast when we release a podcast, usually bi-weekly. We'll pick up again once we get summertime.
Sure.
And then you can find us on Telegram. We got our own group. It's
Isn't it
t.me/2chickshomestead, I think. And then our website is 2chickshomestead.com.
Let's see if I can get I don't know if it'll give me a group link to share or not.
I can probably get it real quick.
There we go. I got it. There.
All right.
But it won't let you share it. So I'll share it here, guys. If anybody wants to join, there's t.me/2chickshomestead podcast. And it's a great group. It's yes.
Pretty small.
Yeah. We like that.
Yep.
So, all right. Thank you, guys. This was fun as always. We've got hey, there he is. John's got full light now. So we'll be back the first Thursday. I guess Thursdays have been okay. I know it keeps poor Rachel up on the East Coast late, but it's been working. So
yeah, it's almost 11 here.
we'll be back on my mother-in-law's birthday, April Fool's Day. So no, I don't. It really is, though. That's what's funny about it. So anyway, guys, as always, stay happy, stay healthy, and have a great week.